She was just the maid. But when the millionaire's daughter started showing strange signs everyone ignored, Ruth noticed what no one else did, and her discovery stopped a tragedy seconds before it was too late. Stories like this remind us that compassion has no status, and heroes don't always wear suits or badges. Sometimes they wear aprons and carry faith. If you believe kindness still changes the world, welcome to our channel, where every story restores hope. Subscribe, like, and share to keep spreading light. The mornings inside the Miller mansion always carried a strange kind of quiet. Not peace, but pressure. The kind of silence money buys, heavy and pristine, when nothing seemed out of place and yet everything felt just slightly wrong. The sun poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, landing on marble floors that gleamed like mirrors. The air smelled faintly of roses and polish, every corner arranged to perfection. And somewhere in the middle of that world, a world of silver spoons and shallow smiles, moved Ruth Johnson. She wasn't part of the family. She wasn't part of the pictures that grace magazine covers or charity galas. She was the one who slipped in before dawn and left long after dark, the one who made the luxury livable, invisible in every way that mattered to the people she served. Ruth had worked for the Millers for 5 years. To most of the household, she was a ghost, quiet, reliable, there when needed and gone when not. Her hands were rough from scrubbing, her back sore from bending, but her heart was steady, fueled by a faith that no hardship could dim. Charles Miller, the master of the house, was everything people thought they wanted to be, a millionaire investor, charming, commanding, always in motion. He spoke in numbers and closed deals faster than most could process. His wife, Victoria, was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Tall, graceful, and always camera-ready, her smile perfected through years of practice. Their life was a portrait of success. But behind those perfect frames lay coldness, a kind of emptiness Ruth could feel in the air. Only one soul in that house ever really saw her, 9-year-old Emily Miller. To Emily, Ruth wasn't just the maid who cleaned up her room or brought her breakfast. She was the one who listened when nobody else did, the one who noticed when the little girl's smile didn't reach her eyes. Ruth reminded Emily of warmth, something soft and safe in a home that often felt more like a museum. But lately, that warmth was flickering. At first, it was small things. Emily seemed tired, her laughter a little weaker, her cheeks losing color. Then came the fainting spell at breakfast, a soft thud, a gasp, and panic breaking through the silence. The family doctor came quickly, performed a few tests, and reassured everyone it was nothing. A touch of fatigue, he'd said. Victoria accepted it without question. Charles barely looked up from his phone. But Ruth saw what they didn't. She saw the gray tint beneath Emily's lips, the shallow way she breathed at night, the way her little hands trembled when she lifted her spoon. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. That night, long after everyone had gone to bed, Ruth moved quietly through the hallways, her senses sharp. The mansion was silent but heavy, and when she entered Emily's room to tidy up, she noticed it again, the faint, musty smell. It clung to the air like damp earth after rain. She wiped the vent and saw small black specks on the cloth. Dust, she thought. But her fingers itched afterward. By morning, she found the same specks near the windowsill and along the hallway vent. A coincidence, maybe, or a warning. Days passed, and Emily grew weaker. Her laughter disappeared entirely. Her drawings, once full of color, turned into smudges of gray and brown. Ruth's heart broke a little more each day. She tried to tell Victoria about the smell, about the strange dust in the vents, but Victoria dismissed her with a single wave. "Ruth," she said sharply, "we have people for that. Please, just focus on your chores." That was it. A dismissal that felt heavier than it sounded. But Ruth couldn't shake the worry. When she prayed that night, she didn't ask for money or favor, just for the strength to understand what was happening to that little girl. Something in her spirit whispered that Emily's illness wasn't simple, that it wasn't exhaustion or stress. It was something in the house, something unseen. The next day, she overheard the gardener talking about black patches behind the basement pipes, damp walls, a smell like mildew. Her heart skipped. Mold. That same musty scent she'd smelled in Emily's room. Her stomach turned as the truth settled in. If the mold had spread into the vents, then every breath Emily took was poisoning her. Ruth tried again to speak, but the words felt smaller each time. To the Millers, she was just a maid, a woman whose opinion weighed less than a vase on their mantel. And yet, she couldn't unsee what she'd seen. That night, she took a flashlight and went down into the basement herself. The smell was overwhelming. Behind the water heater, the wall was blackened, fuzzy, damp, and alive. She touched it gently, and her fingers came away stained with rot. The air itself felt heavy, hard to breathe. She stepped back, covering her mouth. Her heart pounded as she realized how close the vents were, how easily this decay could crawl through the ducts and into the rooms above. She had no proof, no authority, no degree. Just instinct, the same instinct that once failed to save her own daughter years ago, when pneumonia had taken her in the night before help could come. That loss still haunted her, the image of a child gasping for air, helpless and fading. She had promised herself she'd never stand by again if she could save another. So she decided. If no one would listen, she would act. The following morning, Emily woke up weaker than ever. She couldn't finish breakfast. Her hand shook when she reached for water. Ruth's eyes filled with tears as she knelt beside her. "You're going to be okay, baby," she whispered, brushing the girl's hair back. "I promise you, you'll be okay." Victoria walked in just then, holding her phone, irritated by the delay. "Ruth, please," she said sharply. "You're making her nervous. Let the doctor handle it." But the doctor didn't see what Ruth saw. That night, when the house was quiet again, Ruth took matters into her own hands. She gathered what little courage she had, walked to Charles's study, and knocked softly. He looked up, surprised to see her there. "Sir," she began, her voice trembling, "I think there's something in the air system, something that's making Miss Emily sick." Charles frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I've seen it, sir," she said quickly. "There's black mold in the vents. The smell, it's in her room, in the basement. She's breathing it every night. Please, you need to have someone check." He interrupted, voice cold. "Ruth, I appreciate your concern, but we have professionals who handle these things. You're not a doctor. You're not a technician. Just focus on your work, all right?" The dismissal hit her harder than she expected. She nodded, biting her lip to keep from crying. "Yes, sir," she whispered. But deep down, she knew, if she waited, Emily might not survive another week. The next morning was the worst yet. Emily collapsed while reading on her bed. The sound of her small body hitting the floor echoed through the hall. Ruth rushed in first, her heart pounding. "Emily, Emily, baby, can you hear me?" The girl's lips were pale blue. She wasn't breathing right. Ruth screamed for help. Victoria came running, her heels clicking against the floor, panic washing over her perfect face for the first time. Charles followed, confused and scared. They rushed Emily to the hospital. Ruth rode with them in silence, holding the girl's small hand, whispering prayers the whole way. The doctors worked quickly, attaching wires, oxygen, machines. Charles stood frozen, Victoria sobbing beside him. Ruth watched the monitors with tears streaming down her face. When the doctor finally spoke, his tone was grave. She suffered severe respiratory distress. There are signs of prolonged exposure to toxic mold. We'll need to test the home environment immediately. The words hit the Millers like thunder. Toxic mold. Charles repeated, his voice breaking. "Yes," the doctor said. "If it's in the air ducts, it could have been building for months. It's a silent killer. You're lucky she was brought in when she was. Another few hours and—" He stopped himself. Ruth's knees nearly gave out. Her suspicion, her instinct, had been right. Victoria covered her face, shaking. "Oh my God, all this time." Ruth stepped back quietly, letting them process. She didn't want credit. She just wanted Emily to live. Hours later, When the worst had passed and Emily's breathing steadied under the gentle rhythm of the machine, Ruth sat by her bedside, exhausted. The girl stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. "Ruth," she whispered weakly. "I'm here, sweetheart," Ruth said softly, brushing a tear away. "You rest now. You're safe." Emily smiled faintly before drifting back to sleep. Outside the room, Charles approached slowly. His pride had melted into something smaller, gratitude mixed with shame. He looked at Ruth, the woman he dismissed, the maid he'd barely noticed in 5 years. "You saved her," he said quietly. Ruth shook her head. "No, sir. God did. I just listened." For the first time, Charles truly saw her, not as the maid, but as a woman who had carried more compassion in her small hands than he'd carried in all his wealth. The mansion was later inspected and found to be full of toxic black mold, spreading unseen through the vents and walls. It had been making Emily sick for months, nearly killing her. The family moved out immediately, the entire house gutted and rebuilt. But some things can't be rebuilt. Charles and Victoria changed after that. The illusion of perfection cracked. The photo op stopped, the parties quieted. They began to spend real time with their daughter, to listen, to notice, to love. And Ruth. She remained in their lives, not as a maid, but as family. Every morning afterward, Emily ran to her with a smile, wrapping her small arms around Ruth's waist. "You're my hero," she would say. Ruth always smiled gently and whispered the same reply. "No, baby. I just paid attention." Sometimes, when she stood by the window watching the sunrise over the now-clean house, Ruth thought of her own daughter, the one she couldn't save. She felt peace knowing that maybe, in saving Emily, she had redeemed a part of that loss. Because sometimes, God gives second chances, not to rewrite the past, but to right its echoes. And though the world rarely celebrates women like Ruth Johnson, her act of quiet courage reminded everyone that true heroism isn't loud. It doesn't wear medals or demand attention. It whispers, it watches, it loves, and when the moment comes, it acts. In the end, it wasn't wealth or status that saved Emily Miller's life. It was the heart of a humble maid who refused to ignore what others overlooked, a woman who saw what no one else did and had the courage to believe her compassion mattered. Because heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear aprons. And sometimes they save lives simply by paying attention.